Hey everyone, what's good? With the Eden launch happening within a month, now is a good time to go over a class tier list for the initial days of the launch to give you that head start advantage. We will briefly break down what we expect to happen in the beginning, and then we'll talk about information you need to know about classes. Your goal is reaching the max level as fast as you can. PvE leveling will generally stay the same pace throughout the server lifetime, except when power leveling happens a lot later on. Leveling through PvP in Battlegrounds is usually slightly slower under normal circumstances compared to PvE group leveling. However, the Battleground population will be historical, and unlike anything you've ever seen in a PvP MMORPG. There will be hundreds of players from each realm storming these relatively small battlegrounds, and your progression will be exponentially accelerated because of this. I suggest leveling multiple characters to the max level while this tide is rolling. Once you hit 50, the next stop is to get champion level 10, which can be achieved through multiple ways, and I don't think we'll know the most optimal way until time tells us. At this point, you need to start working on a template. A template is a set of all items your character wears at one time to get the max stats, bonuses, resist, etc. Once your character is 50, CL 10, and has a max template, you are at maximum potential and ready to start the RVR grind. Template difficulty is not equal between classes. Casters have the easiest templates because they require less amount of bonuses from gear. Next is healers, then melee DPS and tanks, and the two hardest are easily stealthers and hybrids. The harder it is to make your template, the more time you'll need to spend farming and collecting money. It's not that big of a difference, but it's something to think about. The last points we need to cover involves understanding basic DAOC concepts. Firstly, hitting enemies before they die gives you experience and realm points, which are like PvP experience. Movement speed at early levels is pitiful. Therefore, ranged DPS are a huge advantage, because melee don't have the gap closing abilities and survivability yet. The two most common types of damage in this game are physical and magical. You get resistant bonuses through racials, spells, gear, chants, realm abilities, etc. You get some tools to mitigate physical damage early on. Armor Factor and Armor Absorb are the two main ones, but most of the tools used to mitigate magic damage doesn't come until way later in the game. This paired with the fact that caster damage can AoE and is not nearly as dependent on gear as physical DPS means casters are a huge advantage. Casters do the most damage naturally, because they lack the defense abilities, health pools, and armor of other classes. Casters will be doing the most damage naked, at far ranges, and it will almost have no reduction at early levels. The assassin classes excel at killing isolated targets. I believe they'll be completely useless in these galactic scale battles in the battlegrounds. Hybrids should be okay if you're able to deal consistent damage from range. Melee DPS won't be able to reach the hordes of casters, annihilating everyone from afar. Finally, healers are always great in any and every scenario. Who doesn't love healers? Now that you got a basic understanding of everything, let's go to the tier list. So the best casters initially will be the ones with bolts. Bolts have the most range for damage spells and deal insane single target damage. With a short cooldown, you'll be spamming these, collecting kills each time with no counter, as you'll be behind a wall of bodies. In higher BGs, your CC will be useful too. Next, you have classes with area damage over time spells. Getting one big area of effect dot will net you tons of XP and RPs. AoE dots deal the most damage with one spell cast. These classes are great in organized full groups too. Then we have core group members. As the top groups will advance faster to the next BG, team comps will start to play a factor as levels increase, zerging decreases, and more organized full group skirmishes start happening. Speed and support classes will be required. Now we have classes that lack AoE dots and bolts. These classes will be okay at dealing range damage at every phase. Their CC will be useless at the beginning with the zerging, but as you pull ahead of the tide, CC will become useful. So the melee DPS will be melted down by range before they can even touch an enemy at the early levels. Then at higher BGs, they will be vulnerable to CC as they won't have determination to counter this yet. Light tanks will start to become decent once they get charged. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why are archers so low? They do great damage with huge range. Shouldn't they be with the B tiers at least? Well, you're completely right. They do great damage with stealth, pop a caster, and repeat. However, they're not wanted in groups. In DAOC, stealthers are the least desired class in groups, and are mostly rejected. You will need an expensive template to really shine, and it'll be tough finding groups to accomplish this. The E tier suffers from not being able to deal decent range damage, and at higher BGs, they will be vulnerable to CC, without charge and CC reduction abilities like Stoicism. Plus, hybrids will have harder templates. Lastly, we have the Assassins. They are completely useless in large-scale Zerg battles. They have expensive templates, and are the least desired class for group skirmishes and late-game PvE. If you really want to main an assassin, I suggest you make another character that is desired in groups to farm your template, and level the assassin second. One thing you need to decide is if you're going to be a competitive hardcore 8v8 player. If this sounds like something you want to do, I suggest going to the looking for guild or group section in Discord and just let them know. Be like, hey, I'm a new or returning player, I've been watching videos, I'm generally good at games, and I'm looking for a competitive guild or group to be a part of. Already, the best groups are discussing which realm they want to play, what composition, who will be on the roster, and most of them haven't played together for years on previous servers. So you got a little catching up to do. Also, if you're going for a top spot in the Herald, which is like the RVR leaderboard, you get this angel wings animation on your character. This is a little more complicated than just being above average player. It requires a lot of playing. My suggestion is if you got a family or kids, make them play while you're sleeping. If you got a job, quit. Go on welfare. You got pets, donate them. Cell phone, disconnect that shit. Your whole life needs to be DAOC if you want to be #1 on the Herald.